I killed them. I used my sisters for money. Now they want my mother. No, 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 no. Please forgive me. I confessed. The money was not clean. It was blood money. I sold my soul for this wealth. Save me from this torment.
For over 10 years, Ekene had been known as the young preacher of Umudike village. Every Sunday, he stood behind the pulpit, preaching about faith, patience, and God's timing. The villagers respected him. Many called him Pastor Ekene, even though he wasn't ordained. But while others were moving forward in life, Ekene seemed trapped. Year after year, he remained poor. He prayed. He fasted. He attended crusades. He sowed seeds. Yet, nothing changed. The little tailoring business he started failed. The poultry farm he invested in collapsed. Even the transport business he borrowed money to start ended in disaster. Soon, people began mocking him. "See the preacher," they would laugh. "He keeps preaching prosperity, but can't even feed himself." Those words cut deep. Every night, Ekene cried in secret. He loved God, but frustration was slowly replacing his faith. One evening, while sitting alone under a mango tree, an old friend named Chuka arrived in a flashy SUV. The vehicle alone was worth more than every property in Ekene's family compound. "Ekene!" Chuka shouted happily. The two embraced. As they talked, Ekene couldn't stop staring at the expensive watch on Chuka's wrist. "How did you become this rich?" Ekene finally asked. Chuka smiled mysteriously. "My brother, this world is deeper than you think." Ekene frowned. "What do you mean?" Chuka leaned closer. "There are powers that can open doors faster than prayers." The words disturbed Ekene. But they also awakened something dangerous inside him. For the next few weeks, Chuka kept visiting. Each time, he arrived with new cars, expensive clothes, and stories of luxury. Slowly, Ekene's resistance weakened. His frustration became stronger than his convictions. One night, Chuka finally took him to meet a famous native doctor hidden deep inside a forest. The man was feared throughout the region. People called him the keeper of wealth. When Ekene entered the shrine, fear gripped his heart. The native doctor stared into his eyes and laughed. "You are a preacher." Ekene froze. "How did you know?" The old man laughed again. "Your hands are clean, but your heart is tired." The statement hit Ekene like thunder. The native doctor continued. "You want wealth." Ekene lowered his head. For the first time in years, he admitted it. "Yes." The old man nodded. "Wealth can be yours." Ekene's eyes widened. "But every gift has a price." A cold silence filled the shrine. Then, the native doctor mentioned the price. Ekene felt his entire body go numb. "No," he whispered. "I can't do that." The native doctor smiled darkly. "You came here because poverty has defeated your faith." Ekene stood up immediately and rushed out of the shrine. For days, he couldn't sleep. His conscience tortured him, but poverty tortured him even more. Bills kept piling up. Mockery continued. Friends abandoned him. And each day, the temptation grew stronger. Then one evening, he looked at a photo of his two beloved sisters, Ruth and Somto, the very sisters he had protected since childhood, the very sisters who trusted him with their lives. Tears filled his eyes. "What have I become?" he whispered. But somewhere deep within him, a voice kept repeating, "Just once, and your suffering will end." Ekene didn't know it yet, but he was standing at the edge of a cliff. One decision was about to change his life forever. And once he crossed that line, there would be no turning back. 3 months had passed since Ekene returned to the shrine. This time, he didn't run away. This time, desperation had defeated his conscience. The native doctor looked at him and smiled. I knew you would return. Ekene couldn't lift his eyes. He felt ashamed. Yet, he remained seated. The old man began preparing strange items inside the shrine. The smell alone made Ekene uncomfortable. Once you accept this path, the native doctor warned, there is no turning back. Ekene hesitated. For one final moment, he thought about leaving, but then he remembered the mockery, the hunger, the years of unanswered prayers, and he nodded. The ritual was performed. When it ended, the native doctor simply said, your wealth has begun. The changes started immediately. A man who had ignored Ekene for years suddenly offered him a business partnership. Another person gifted him a piece of land. Money flowed from directions he couldn't explain. Context appeared. Investments multiplied. Everything he touched seemed to succeed. Within a year, Ekene became one of the richest men in the states. The villagers who once mocked him now praised him. People stood whenever he entered a room. The same people who called him a failure now called him Chief Ekene. His mansion became the envy of the community. Luxury cars filled his compound. He wore expensive suits. He traveled abroad. To everyone watching, Ekene was finally living his dream. But every dream built on darkness eventually becomes a nightmare. One evening, Ruth suddenly became ill. No one understood what was wrong. She had always been healthy, yet her condition worsened every day. Doctors ran tests. Nothing explained her illness. Within weeks, Ruth was gone. The entire village mourned. Ekene cried louder than anyone else. But deep inside, he knew the truth. The guilt nearly destroyed him. Just 6 months later, tragedy struck again. Somto collapsed unexpectedly, like Ruth. No doctor could explain what happened. The young woman, who had always filled every room with laughter, slowly faded away. And soon, Somto was gone too. Their mother was devastated. The family was shattered. The village whispered about a mysterious curse, but nobody suspected Ekene. Nobody except Ekene himself. Every night, he heard their voices in his dreams. Every night, he woke up sweating. Every night, guilt squeezed his heart tighter. 1 year after Somto's death, Ekene returned to the shrine. The native doctor looked pleased. You have become very wealthy. Ekene nodded. But I cannot sleep. The old man laughed. Sleep is not part of the agreement. Then his face became serious. There is another problem. Ekene frowned. What problem? The native doctor slowly stood. The wealth must be renewed. Fear rushed through Ekene's body. What do you mean? The old man's answer froze his blood. The spirits want another sacrifice. Ekene's voice shook. No, the native doctor smiled. They have chosen someone. Ekene felt his heart pounding. Who? The old man pointed at him. Your mother. For several seconds, the world became silent. Ekene couldn't believe what he had heard. My mother? The native doctor nodded. The spirits are hungry. No! Ekene shouted. The old man remained calm. You gave Ruth. You gave Somto. This is simply the next step. Ekene stepped backward. Anger replaced fear. Never! The native doctor laughed. You think you can stop now? Ekene's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, he saw the truth clearly. All the money, all the cars, all the houses. What was the point? Ruth was gone. Somto was gone. And now they wanted his mother. Who would be left to enjoy the wealth? Who would remain as family? The mansion suddenly felt empty. The cars suddenly felt useless. The money suddenly felt worthless. That night, Ekene sat alone in his luxury mansion. He looked around. Millions of naira surrounded him. Yet, he had never felt poorer. For the first time, he asked himself a question he should have asked years ago. What exactly have I? And for the first time, He didn't like the answer because the truth was simple. He had gained wealth, but he had lost everything that mattered. After refusing to give up his mother, Ekene left the shrine in anger. For the first time in years, he chose his family over wealth, but the native doctor's final words followed him home. You cannot break the agreement. The spirits will come for what belongs to them. At first, nothing happened. Days passed, then weeks. Ekene started believing he had escaped, but one night, he woke up suddenly. Someone was calling his name. Ekene, the voice sounded familiar. He sat up. The room was empty. Then he heard it again. Brother, his heart nearly stopped. It sounded like Ruth. The nightmares began. Every night, he saw Ruth and Somto standing in darkness. Their faces were sad. Their eyes never left him. Sometimes they said nothing. Sometimes they simply asked one question. Was the money worth it? Each time, Ekene woke up screaming. Soon, strange things started happening. He heard footsteps in empty rooms. Doors opened by themselves. Shadows appeared where nobody stood. His mansion became a prison. Sleep abandoned him. Peace abandoned him. Even the money could not comfort him anymore. His mother noticed the change. One evening, she sat beside him. My son, what is troubling you? Tears immediately filled Ikene's eyes. For years, he had carried the burden alone. He wanted to confess. He wanted to tell her everything, but fear stopped him. Instead, he simply hugged her and cried. The old woman became worried. She had never seen her son like this before. As months passed, Ikene's condition worsened. He stopped attending business meetings. He stopped leaving the house. His partners became concerned. His workers became confused. The richest man in the community was slowly losing his mind. One night, while sitting alone in his mansion, he suddenly heard loud voices. Not one voice, many voices. The voices grew louder and louder and louder until he could no longer bear it. He covered his ears and screamed, but the voices would not stop. They kept repeating the same words. Confess. Confess, confess. That was the night Ekene finally broke. He ran out of his mansion. He ran into the streets. He ran through the village. And as he ran, he began shouting everything. I used Ruth. I used Somto. They promised me wealth. They want my mother too. The villagers watched in disbelief. Some thought he was joking. Others thought he was possessed. But Ekene continued shouting again and again until everyone heard. The news spread like wildfire. Within hours, the entire village gathered. People who once admired him now stared at him with horror. The man they respected had become the very thing they feared. His mother stood among the crowd, confused, heartbroken, unable to believe what she was hearing. Then she looked directly at her son. Ekene, the pain in her voice shattered him completely. For the first time, he saw the damage his greed had caused, not just to himself, but to everyone who loved him. The next morning, Ekene was found sitting beneath the same mango tree where Chuka had first spoken to him years ago. The irony was painful. The place where temptation had entered his life had become the place of his downfall. His mansion remained, his cars remained, his money remained, but everything that truly mattered was gone. As for the native doctor, nobody ever saw him again. His shrine was later found abandoned. The man had disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only questions and the ruins of many lives. Years later, villagers still told the story of Ekene, not as a story of wealth, but as a warning that some prices are too expensive, a warning that greed can destroy what love builds, a warning that money can buy comfort, but never peace. Moral lessons 1. Not every opportunity is worth taking. 2. Wealth gained through evil eventually destroys the person who acquires it. 3. Family is more valuable than money. 4. Guilt may remain hidden for years, but the truth eventually finds its way out. 5. Real success is having peace, integrity, and loved ones around you, not just riches. What shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul?